Thanks so much for joining us for One Day Closer. I want to take a quick moment just to let you know the content for this week's topic might be a little sensitive for some. We're going to be talking about the battle with sexual temptation that so many are experiencing in our culture and pornography and how to gain freedom from that. So we'd love for you to watch, but we want you to make the best decision that's for you as far as viewing goes. An article in 2017 revealed a shocking statistic about pornography use in our culture. It stated that in 2016, human beings spent over 4 billion hours watching pornography on one of the most popular pornographic websites. That's not including all the other websites that people are visiting. That's almost incomprehensible. In just 1 year, humans devoted the equivalent of over 500,000 years of human life to viewing pornography on one particular site. If those numbers stayed consistent every year since, which they've likely increased, that means that human beings have spent the staggering equivalent of 4.5 million years worshiping pornography since 2016. The pornographic industry, now worth $97 billion, outgrosses Hollywood every year and brings in more money annually than the NFL, NBA, and MLB combined. This is a global crisis, and the U.S. is leading the world. Pornography has become America's favorite pastime. An article in 2023 revealed that nearly 70 to 80% of men aged 18 to 49 watch pornography regularly, while 30% of younger men say they watch it every day. And women's viewership is also rising, especially compared to just a decade ago. Pornography is perverting God's good gift of sexual intimacy. It's destroying marriages, and it seems to be contributing to an increase in men choosing to stay single longer, as well as the loneliness epidemic that so many are facing in our nation at this time. But those realities are why I'm so excited for today's show. Because Satan and sin don't get the last laugh. Satan and sin don't have the ability to keep people in the bondage of shame, guilt, fear, and isolation that pornography produces. We have a great Savior who takes big problems and turns them into big opportunities to show up and show off how great He is. We're going to be talking with a couple today who are working with God to help men and women find freedom from the prison of pornography. You're watching One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring hope and purpose to many. Let's go meet our guests for today. We're here in studio today with Brennen and Trudi Coffman to learn how to find freedom from sexual temptation. Brennen and Trudi, thank you so much for being willing to come and share about a topic that I think is often overlooked or hidden or afraid to be talked about, and to come and share your story and how God's using you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. As we start, you just want to share a little bit about your family and yourselves?
Sure. Trudy and I have a blended family. Mm-hmm. Between us, we have 6 kids and 5 wonderful grandchildren that we just adore. And
spoil.
And spoil.
That's your job, right?
Yes, that is.
I've been in the Valley for the last 37 years, working as a manager. And Trudy's a lifelong. She's a Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, okay. Like my wife.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to dive right in. I know you're okay with this, Brian. So let's just start with the reality of your story. So how did you come to become bonded by sexual sin and pornography? I know it started young and it continued for many years in your life.
Actually started at 5 years old.
Wow.
In my grandfather's basement with detective magazines that had illustrated pictures of naked women. Mm-hmm. And it was just exciting. I didn't know what to do with it as a 5-year-old. And so every time I went to my grandfather's house, and my grandparents' house, I'd run downstairs and that's where the play toys were and all the stuff, and I would find his stash, which he would move all the time, because if Grandma would have known, she probably would have beaten him with them.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
so it started from there, and then it grew when in my teenage years. In the only bathroom in our house, it was right beside the toilet. Like, it was perfectly normal. My father was a president of our congregation, and the stuff wasn't ever put away. It wasn't open. I mean, there might have been a newspaper or something over top of it, but it was never hidden.
Yeah.
And even when the pastor came over, it wasn't taken away or hidden.
Yeah.
So it was just normal. So what I thought was normal.
Yeah. Wow. So just something that's normal. And even I've heard others talk about even a friend whose father was a pastor, and asked about how did you talk about these things? And we didn't talk about those things. And so it was something that was just pushed aside even, or just, we don't go there. Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting.
But that's what boys do.
Yeah. 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 It's easy to do that. And then we can also justify ourselves if we don't address it in someone else's life. And so this went on until you were 50 years old. So 5 to 50. Tell me, how did God grab a hold of your heart in this area and start to help you fight for freedom?
Well, I was kind of pushed into going to a men's retreat. I'm not a men's retreat kind of guy, or at least at that point I wasn't. So she says. But when I got to the retreat, and it was between one of the meals or after one of the meals, Steve Fessler stood in front of the group, and there were 300 men.
Yeah.
And he said 93% of Christian men look at pornography regularly, and 7% are liars. Yeah. And it kind of hit me that, maybe it wasn't just me. Yeah. And there was a real problem with it. So for the next year, I was clean until the next time I was at Lake Champion. And then right before I went, it's like, well, I haven't done it in a year. A little is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And it started the cycle all over again. Mm-hmm. And then it took a couple of years and a step study in Celebrate Recovery. And I was clean, but I was white knuckling. Nothing was easy. And I ran into a guy again at the 4th Lake Champion.
It's a great weekend, by the way.
Yeah. It was a good friend of mine, and he was running a Conquer series.
Yeah.
And so he invited me, and I accepted, and that's kind of when I let Trudy know what was going on.
Wow.
So I fortunately was never caught. I came clean prior.
Yeah.
Where most men get caught, and then it makes the situation more difficult.
Absolutely, that God gave you the space and the encouragement and challenge to recognize it and then confess it. Wow. Well, thank you, Brian. We're going to take a quick break and then come back and dive more into your story of how God's been working in your life and then through you in others' lives. Stick with us. We're going to be right back to talk more about how we can fight for freedom from sexual bondage.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Welcome back to One Day Closer. We're here with Brennen and Trudi Coffman talking about how to find freedom from sexual temptation. So Brian, you were just sharing your story as we heard about the statistics and how pornography is really just keeping men in bondage and now women at a more significant level as well. And so as we talk about the idea of bondage, Brian, tell me what happens in a man's life when he is imprisoned by this, because we don't talk about it much. It's not everyday conversation. So what happens in a man's life?
Well, shame is a great silencer.
Yeah.
So shame is probably the number one thing that keeps men from getting help. That's a big one. But also, I don't think there's a good understanding of what the addiction actually even is. Mm-hmm. And it's much more than I can pray my way out of this, or if I just read the Bible more, I can get out of this. Mm-hmm. And so it's a brain problem. And it's awesome because science is now proving that the Bible was correct 2,000 years ago when it talks about retraining your mind or retraining your brain.
Yes.
And it actually is a physical occurrence that you can see. Because it's a brain problem, that doesn't mean it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't give you an excuse to behave badly. Mm-hmm. But that's where it's at. And your fight or flight brain takes control. And literally, when you're in the absolute worst part of the bondage, your brain says, "If I don't have this, I'm going to die." Mm. And that's how it's processed. So it's a very powerful thing. And actually, on the brain scans, it looks exactly like a cocaine brain when they do these scans.
Yeah, it's incredible. In college, I was doing a study with a professor. I was involved in it, where he was studying addiction, and what he was looking at was alcohol, smoking, and how the neural pathways that develop, and we use them, and his particular focus was on coping mechanisms, right? And when we see this with pornography, the use increases when people are feeling bad or anxious or whatever. And and it's a way our brain, the more we do it, the more we contribute to wanting to do it more.
We call that medicating.
Brain chemistry, yeah, absolutely.
We medicate our pain through the addiction.
So, and knowing as we look at this, the prevalence of, when we look at the statistics, the prevalence of this in our culture, why do you think, Brian, it is that more men aren't getting help? I mean, it seems like there should be every man going through something, for an extended period of time in this arena.
Great question, because I think the answer is, number one, in the church especially, it's a hidden sin.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to deal with it. So being a hidden sin, I think that keeps people in shame. And guilt says I've done something wrong. Shame says there's something wrong with me. Mm. If there's something wrong with me, especially as a man, I'm not going to let you know that. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell my secret. And then I also think that from the pulpit, there's a lot of great sermons that I've heard on sex, but this isn't something that's mentioned enough. Yeah. And the fact that there are places out there that you can get help and you can get clean, and it's not without a lot of hard work and pain. But most guys, I think theirs starts because of traumas in their lives. Big T traumas, which are, you get hit by a bus, or little T traumas where somebody constantly tells you you're stupid. How come you're so irresponsible? And you hear that over and over and over again as a child especially. That's not exclusively the problem. Right. Some guys just see porn and like it, and then they start to use that then to medicate what else is going on in their life. So it doesn't have anything to do with trauma. But what's really blown me away from the start of this whole thing is how many men were actually sexually abused as children. Yeah. By men, by women, by couples, by other children. It's really astounding the percentages.
And I love just the reality of what you're a part of, in the sense of, so you have men who, it's not an excuse for how they're choosing to respond to it, but who've gone through deep traumas and now are held in bondage now, again, something that they never asked for, never wanted, and it wasn't right. And now they're in bondage, and there's all this shame, and they've got no space to find help, because the shame of it and the fear and all of that. But now you're creating a space for men to come and even naming it, right? Because no one's going to come to sexual addiction or sexual bondage group, right? But Fight for Freedom, just even being wise in the way that you name it, and things like that for guys so they can come and creating that environment. Wow. Yeah.
And we chose the Fight for Freedom moniker over calling it Conquer Series or whatever.
Yeah.
Number one, because we use a lot of different materials in our group.
Yeah.
A lot of different curriculums. But the other thing is if these guys are willing to say, hey, listen, I'm not willing to tell my wife yet,
Right.
but I need to fix this. The wives aren't going to go on. They're going to search Fight for Freedom. They're not going to find anything on the internet.
Yeah.
It's not where if they search the Conquer series or they search the Warpath series, it's going to come up.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And then along those lines, so Brian, you had said something in our conversation about someone saying, your wives will find out. God's not just your father, he's also your father-in-law, and he cares deeply about your wife. So Trudi, could you share what was it like for you as a wife when Brian confessed this to you?
Yeah. When Brian first told me, first of all, before even Brian told me, I had already worked on myself on a lot of things because I had watched my ex-husband go through an addiction. So I had gone through counseling and I had gone through Celebrate Recovery to work on my codependency.
Yes.
So when he first told me, my first response was, well, then you better do something about it because I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah, I don't go through this again, right?
Exactly. So luckily he had already lined up what he was going to do, what he was going to work on. So that for me was him telling me and already figuring out what he was going to do was a big thing.
Yeah.
Not many men do that.
Yes.
Most times women find out from the hard way.
Right.
They find out something on the phone or they find out something on the computer and then they confront, and usually the men deny. So it's very common for them. They know something's going on or they know, this is what's happening. And so they are in that either, the codependency part of, they think, first of all, they blame themselves.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot too.
And
so
let's
for
talk
me,
about
I wasn't doing that.
The blaming themselves, and sometimes others can blame them. So,
Yes.
and explain how wives will blame themselves, and then how some of the unhelpful things that are said to women as far as it's their job to fix their husband or contribute to him overcoming this.
Yeah. So one of the things I learned, the biggest thing I learned was that I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. And so when women find out though, and they tell somebody, whether it's a friend or whether it's somebody at church or whether, right away they get told that they should either, lose weight or they need to dress better or they need to, give it to them more often. That's usually the thing that they hear right away. So they also go into the shame and the embarrassment of it, and so they don't tell anybody. So they're just hurting it themselves. They just don't know who to talk to about it.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's really, that's their first reaction.
Wow.
Their first response with it.
And Satan's having a field day because men are shamed and isolated. The women are now, he's got them isolated. Nobody's bringing it out. And
then
it's
the marriage
just,
is coming apart too.
Yeah.
Because he's doing his own thing, she's doing her own thing, and they aren't working together or even trying to figure out, what to do in it.
Wow. And so, Brian, you were leading something called Fight for Freedom for men. But Trudi, now you're also leading something called Betrayal and Beyond for the wives of husbands who are in bondage to sexual sin. And so how does a wife get involved in that, and how does it help them?
So we actually have it's a almost 9-month book that we work through. It is it's called Betrayal and Beyond, and we work through that book. And it first of all helps to the women to identify who they are and who they are in Christ. That means a lot because when they find out about this, they don't think they're enough. Yeah. So finding out that they are enough, who God says who they are, not who even their husbands say they are, because they're just crushed. They're crushed in not believing that they are anything. So it just helps them to find out who they are, and also helps them to work on if their husband continues, what do they do? What if
Because
they're-
most do. It's usually
it's
not just,
something-
I'm done now,
exactly,
right?
Exactly, and it's not because it's a brain problem. It is not something that they can just suddenly shut off. So it's what do I do if they continue? How do I not do the codependency of looking on their phone or looking at what they're doing? Because that's
really
not
hard.
It is very hard. Yes. So that's where the men come into, for other men to do that.
Yeah.
And I tell the women right away, you are not to be their sponsor or anything
Yeah.
else. You are not to be that
Yeah.
because every time that happens, they're just crushed all over again.
Yeah.
And so not that they don't need to know when the husband goes backwards, but they don't need to know all the details. They don't need to, unless the wife wants to know.
Right.
But the more details you know, the more hurt you're going to get.
Yeah. And
I can always. One thing we didn't talk about is 6 months after I told Trudi what was going on, she was very upset, and it's like, hey, what's going on? Because we've got a great open verbal relationship. We can talk to each other about anything. And she said, I just want to know something. Why wasn't I enough? And it crushed me. But I had to explain to her all over again that this started at 5 years old.
Yeah.
We weren't together all that long, and long enough, but it's like this didn't have anything to do with you. Nobody was ever going to be enough. This is my problem. You've contributed zero to my problem. And I think a lot of times men will say, well, it's your fault if if we have more sex, then it will stop. And it's just not true. It's just one of the big lies. And that's a problem.
Yeah. I even read my wife and I read a book for premarital counseling, and it almost alluded to that in certain ways about
A lot of times they do.
Yeah, and I just, I didn't appreciate that aspect of it. And it really just feeds into, this whole thing. It's just the way our culture worships and women and their insecurities and their appearance, and our culture just magnifies whatever the image of beauty is, and then men, of course, being attracted to that as well.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll find different books that will say that.
Yeah.
That will kind of say if you take care of him, it won't be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is.
And I
Yes.
found an angel, and I don't want to lose him, so I'm going to do whatever I can.
Oh, that's great. Trudi, what does it look like for a wife to come alongside of her husband in this struggle, but also set appropriate boundaries?
Yes, yeah. First of all, forgiveness is not reconciliation always.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we get that all confused really easily. We think if we forgive them, that means, and husbands feel this too, they forgive me, then we can go right back to what we were doing. So one of the things that's a part of what the book also talks about is, first of all, helping them in finding the forgiveness, because forgiveness doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
We can't just suddenly say we're going to forgive. They're words then. So we don't always just easily forgive, but we have to learn how to forgive and how to do it biblically.
Yes.
And how to do it through a process. Because if we do it if we forget all that, it doesn't happen.
Yes.
It's not easily done. And so that is one of the ways, and also holding him accountable.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that is a good way of finding that. In that is helping him to hold him accountable. If we don't find
she should never be his accountability partner.
Accountable too. You need to be with other men,
Yes. You
and,
need to
and
be-
also
right.
be honest with me
Right.
when you
Right.
do,
Yeah.
if that's what she
Right.
desires.
Accountable to the process,
Yeah.
accountable to being honest and open and telling her
Yes.
what's going on.
Right.
But I have an example of a guy that I'm an accountability partner with, and he was looking at a car online, and it was a Hellcat. And that triggered the accountability software.
Yeah.
I immediately send the guy a message, hey, what's up? I just got a notification that you're doing something you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
He said, I was looking at a car.
Yeah.
And he honestly was.
Yeah.
But if his wife gets that same notification,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but you've lied to me before, so
Yeah.
what
Why
else
would I
is
believe
it?
you?
Yeah.
Why would I believe you? And that sends the whole process
Yeah.
backwards, steps and
Especially
steps.
for her.
Yes, exactly.
Especially for her.
yeah.
Yes.
And can I
But
trust him? And
Right.
so it
Right.
alleviates all of that. And the importance of, and believe it or not, we're out of time. But thank you. This has been great. But the importance of men reaching out.
Yes.
This is run at Faith Church, so Fight for Freedom, Betrayal and Beyond, and the need for more groups like this to start. So Brian, I know you had
Yes.
said that you'd be willing to help other men start these groups in different places and
Absolutely.
spaces. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing your story. We're going to take a quick break. Stick with us. We'll be back to talk about how we can apply this to our lives.
You're watching Lighthouse TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This station will feature uplifting faith and family programming. Programs focusing on defending your faith, defending your freedom, and living as a believer in today's culture. To find out more about this station and to watch original content, go to lighthousetv.org. Lighthouse TV, positively different television.
In 1 Corinthians 6, 18 through 20, the Apostle Paul challenges us with this truth. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. This passage underscores the sacredness of our bodies and the profound impact of sexual sin, including pornography, on our physical, emotional, spiritual, and relational well-being. The Apostle Paul encourages believers to flee from sexual immorality and remember that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit meant to honor God. Pornography perverts this divine design, drawing us into a cycle of shame, destruction, and isolation. But there's hope. We can find freedom from this destructive cycle of sin. Here are some steps that you can start taking today to find freedom from bondage to sexual sin. First of all, acknowledge the impact. The first step in breaking free from pornography is acknowledging the damage it's causing you and your loved ones. This isn't just about personal habits, it's about the destruction of healthy relationships, spiritual intimacy, and emotional well-being. Pornography is keeping you in a cycle of shame, isolation, and disconnection, and God wants to give you freedom from those things. Second, take action in community. You can't fight this battle alone. Reach out for help, whether it's joining the Fight for Freedom group, starting your own group, or finding a mentor who has walked this road, and surrounding yourself with people who can encourage and challenge you to fight the good fight in this area. There is freedom from pornography with the right support. You can experience transformation that God is offering you. Finally, embrace a new vision for your life. Start today by renewing your focus on God. He offers healing and restoration, and He turns struggles into opportunities to reveal His greatness. Thank you so much for joining us for One Day Closer, where we're learning how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring Jesus-infused hope and purpose to many.